as I said, so let's start as soon as possible. Please, anywhere you can't hear me well or my screen is misbehaving, just please note me immediately so that I want everybody to be on the same page and we move in the same direction. As I mentioned, is going to be an interactive session. So the objective of this training is number one, we want to understand the GMO, the concepts and the controversies around GMO food and crops, and even animals in Nigeria, and also to explore intersections between GMO and local farming, and to identify the story ideas and reporting angles. Please, are we all journalists in the house? Do we have CSO as well?
So I
Please,
think we are
someone,
all
some,
journalists.
okay, okay,
Mm.
all right, that's fine. So that means this particular, the third point is very important to identify story ideas and reporting angles. And the last one, to apply the ethical guidelines in agricultural reporting, which I believe each and every one of us understand the ethical guidelines in reporting. It's just like the general reporting in different sectors, the ethics and the guidelines surrounding the duty of a journalist. So before I start the listening, can someone just tell me what he understands about GMO? I want someone to just speak a little, just a brief, not like a full, just a sentence, just what you understand about GMO food and crops and even animals. Do we have anyone that want to share it with us? Anyone?
Okay, so I think I'll just say something about it.
Okay.
So GMOs are genetically modified uh, organisms, food, things that have been probably altered to help increase food production and promote food security. Yeah, that's it.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. And I think we are not out of ones. That's GMO. That's GMO. Any other person? Okay. Let's start with the third slide. Understanding GMOs. So what is GMO? Just like Oge said, is a genetically modified organisms whose DNA, crops and plants whose DNA has been altered using modern biotechnology to introduce specific traits such as pest resistance, drought tolerance, and improved nutrition. So that is just GMO, as we know. Uh, it's not far-fetched from let's put out like the apple, the broilers that we consume daily. So these are crops or livestock that we are trying to meet up with the specific problems of food production in globally. Let's say globally, because food production and food security is a global issue. But we narrow down to Nigeria. We look at the problems of food production in Nigeria. It boils down to pests and diseases, climate change, uh, post-harvest losses, and all that and all that and all that. So this idea, the idea around GMO is what can we do? What can we do? How can we bring out crops that has this resilience in its body that the impacts of climate change. In Nigeria, we depend solely on rain agriculture, especially when we don't have enough water or when the government are not providing a better irrigation system. So the smallholder farmers depend solely on rain for the crops and for the livestock to have a better yield and growth. So that's the idea around GMO. What can we do to have all these challenges, a resistance crops that will be able to stand against all these challenges, the challenge of climate change and the challenge of pests and diseases. For instance, we know sometimes I did a report around maize. So there's this pest, they call it, is it something soldier or something soldier? So it's a kind of pest that once it attacks the maize, it can destroy the entire farmland. It can destroy what you've invested. Agriculture is also an expensive business. All what you've invested so far, it can destroy the entire farmland. And same thing goes to rice. I did a report last few months, 2 months ago around rice, and I happened to go to rice community farming communities. And one major thing they mentioned that time was the problem of pests, insects, birds, that the birds will come in irrespective of what you've put in as your investment. But if you give those birds like 2 or 3 days, they will render the entire farmland useless. So the idea of this GMO is what can we do so that when this disease comes in or when this impact of climate change, drought and flood comes in, the crops will withstand those effects. That is where the GMO came in. So the technologists, the scientists decided to come up with a idea of altering the gene of a particular crop of a particular species just to have this trait that will have pest resistance, drought tolerance, and improved nutrition. Yeah. So I do mention the difference between GMO and hybrid. If you pay attention, you will hear like some crops are hybrid, but we put all of them into GMO. But for the sake of understanding, especially when you want to do story around the GMO foods or animals, so we say that the GMO is changed by adding a gene from another species. Example, the approved telomeres and the hybrid are created from crossbreeding. I know if you can recall very well during our secondary school days, we used to talk about crossbreeding when our agricultural teacher would say, this crop we can crossbreed. So that's just the idea. So crossbreeding comes from two parent plants of the same species, while GNA is coming from another species entirely. But let's not dwell so much there. So I just wanted to clarify that, in case when you are in the field or when you are doing your research or when speaking with a science and expert, you mentioned hybrid and the normal GMO. So those are the two different stuff. And most of the hybrid crops we don't have much in Nigeria, like hybrid tomato, maize, sparingly in Africa, but we have more in the Asian countries. So we mentioned that the common GMO crops used globally are soybeans, cotton, sugar. As I explained the idea behind, we can see that they are herbicide tolerance, insect resistance, drought tolerance for the cotton, pest resistance, for the canola, herbicide tolerance, for the sugar beets and papaya, modified for disease and pest. So it's around those key challenges, crop yields and food production as a whole. So behind this idea of GMO, which is being accepted by the major stakeholders in the agri sector, the major players, like if you want to say like if you want to say like major players, stakeholders in the agri sector, there's no how you put away FAO, the Food and Agri Organization, the WHO, World Health Organization. That's in terms of health and other researchers. They've agreed perfectly that GMO food, they are good for human consumption. They are good to be integrated into our food system. They are good in everything we want to do, and that this will solve the problems of food security in the country and globally. But behind this acceptance, there are some concerns which make this GMO a bit controversial. On social media, we'll see stories around GMO, while these people will say, we accept GMO. This what other set of people will say, no, we don't accept GMO. So those three major concerns, number one, the health concern. People are saying that since these GMO are humanly processed or humanly modified crops, which is not like natural, like the way the natural food we consume, that there might be a kind of a long-term effect in the human body. That's in terms of the health concern. A lot of research, a lot of tests has been carried on around this, which these other key players has approved. They said everything is fine. But we human, we are still people are still worried. People are still saying that there's no how, because you can't take away from them. If you look at the processed food we consume, milk, Milo, and other stuff, which are not naturally food. For okay, let's put out like for instance, when we have a newborn baby, the recommendation from the hospital and the doctors is the baby must go through exclusive for the first 6 months. The reason for that is to fight against every uh, diseases and sickness that may come as a result of processed food, processed milk for the baby. A baby, the gene, the cells are not strong, the antibodies are not strong to fight against most of these things. So it's always recommended for a baby to have exclusive, a pure mother milk, even water are not allowed if you want to do the right thing, as recommended by the hospital. So even water, they say at least for 6 months. So that's the same idea that if we allow this GMO being humanly altered crops, that definitely, even when everybody are saying that there's no effects and these crops are okay, that definitely there will be a later on effect that will come in the future. Stuff like cancer, allergic reactions, long-term and unknown effects, and a whole lot of. But since we don't have a strong test to back up this, I leave it as still a controversial argument. That's number one, the health concern. Then the number two is the environmental impact, the diversity of our crops. What will happen to our local crops? What will happen to our local seeds if we allow GMO to take over the entire farming system in Nigeria? Let's stay within Nigeria. If we allow GMO food, GMO crops, GMO seeds to take over the entire That's extinction. Extinction, extinction may come in. Anybody that grows in urbanization and developments in some parts. So, for example of this, we can go back to Apple that we consume every day. For for every event we go in conferences, trainings, I believe if this training was to be physical, we would have consumed Apple as one of our tea breaks. Am I right? Am I right? Are you guys hearing me?
We can hear you. You are right. We
Okay,
can
okay,
actually,
okay,
we have gone for tea
okay,
break. Yeah.
okay. So we would have consumed Apple, but these apples are not so like the natural apple that we have from our or from the village. So if we ask ourselves, when last did we see those apples? I think some people said may not even know the natural apple. The ones we used to see the tree in our neighborhood grow, and when it is time, we pluck and eat. So that's the kind of scenario we people consider the concern that people are thinking of about GMO. So if it's difficult for us to locate our local or early days apple, what will happen if we now accept these GMO crops entirely? Our native cassava, the cassava species that we used to have, we may not see that particular species again. Our different like yam, there are some species that you say, when I eat this particular this species, we use it to do this, we use it. Some of those, our African species, seed species, might go into extinction. So that's another concern. Sorry about that. So the third concern, which is very, very critical, is a socio-economic concern. From what I put on here, you say many GM seeds are patented by multinational companies. So farmers buy new seeds each season instead of saving them, which raises economic debates. GMO seeds, farmers cannot save them for the new planting season. So what that means is that in each planting season you plant, the next planting season you have to go back to the seed company and buy. Unlike the traditional way of preserving our crops, I mean our seeds, when you harvest this season, you preserve some for the new season. So, but in GMO, there's nothing like such. So it boils down to the economic concerns, the monetary part of it. We know the level of smallholder farmers in Nigeria. Do they have enough money to even invest in their farmland? Do they have enough money to even buy medication for their health? So if we accept GMO to take over the entire food system in Nigeria, where would they have money to meet up with this high level of seeds? Some people argue that even when the seed companies are saying that once this is approved, that there will be a subsidy or an understanding that the seeds will be very cheap, will be very low for farmers to access anything in every farming season. But what will happen in the nearest future? If that can work for like one first 2 or 3 or 5 years, definitely we know how we roll in Nigeria. Those things will go up, it will go up. I don't know if anybody has a poultry farm or walk around people that has a poultry farm. Poultry farm. A day chick, I think is something that was 300 naira or two something before. And I think a day chick is up to 2,000 or 1,000 something now. And that is why we are having we are facing high price in our broilers. So for you to buy a chicken this Christmas, you have to spend close to 15,000 or 10,000 before you, I don't even 10,000, I don't know, before you can get a chicken. Whereas if at all we move using our normal traditional chicken, or yeah, we would have, as season goes, as they lay, they produce, you preserve some, you sell some, you preserve some, and you keep some for your festive season. So those are the major concerns: the health concern, the environmental impacts, and the socioeconomic concerns. And these concerns are not, they don't just sweep it under the carpet. They are major concerns that brings up a lot of comments and a lot of arguments in the system in the acceptance of GMO products. Are we together? Please, if I'm clear enough, then just let me know, or in case there's where I need to make an amendment. Okay, Sakina, thank you very much. So I think we have a basic understanding around what GMO and the controversy around GMO now. So let's come down to our local farming systems. We all know, I didn't want to put out much writings around here, but I just want to state the characteristics of smallholder farmers and indigenous farming. So what are the characteristics? What do we know them of? What are how are they pushing their life? Because each time we report for us journalists, each time we report our problems of food production in Nigeria, uh, poor access to credit, farmers don't have access to credit, farm mechanization, farmers are using their hands, our whole traditional way of farming. So in that way, we cannot produce more. So we keep reporting this. We keep saying this, everything. What has changed? When government makes and wants to make a kind of intervention, they will come up with a policy, and they say this policy will work out. But at the end of the day, the politician will still take the whole part of this. So the real impacts or the real idea of that intervention will not be felt by this, our so-called food producers, which we consume daily. Statistics shows that at least 70% of what we consume are being produced by these smallholder farmers. But do they have the necessary needs or support to continue to produce this food? We keep on talking about food security. Do they have that necessary support? No. But if you go into policies, if you look at the government policies, if you go into reports from government, you see a lot of intervention programs which are being introduced to take care of these issues. But if they get to those levels, they don't. So we looked at the characteristics of these smallholder farmers and indigenous. One, we said small, they have small land size and low input production. For, do we have anyone that reports agric here? Apart from, okay, do we have anyone that reports agric as a bit? Okay. If you look at the problems, you notice that this first point, small land size and low input production, is a major problem in food production in Nigeria. But what can they do to help this problem? What can they do to help these problems? Promises, uh, intervention programs, workshops, trainings, and all that not. But at the end of the day, nothing. So That's one of the characteristics of a smallholder farmer. They don't have big land. They don't have good input production. So number two, diverse cropping system. A smallholder farmers will not rely on a particular crop in his farmland. Definitely. In my place, in one farmland, they can do cassava, they can do maize, they can do cocoyam, they can do even fruited pumpkin vegetable. So with these characteristics, what I want us to understand is that as we look at this, compare it to where we are, the background we laid around GMO food. Can we have this if we go into this GMO food entirely? Can we still have these characteristics for our small local farmers? Another one, reliance on family labor, use of local knowledge and traditional techniques. That's where farm mechanization comes in. We also have limited access to credit, irrigation, and modern inputs. So that's limited access to credit. Where will the farmers see money? Where will they have money to get this seed every year, every planting season? I know there are some seed that grows and be ready for harvesting in a period of 4 months, 6 months, some even 3 months. New all these improved seedlings. So would farmers would farmers in our country would they have money to meet up these standards of buying these seeds every year, every planting season? That's a question for journalists. That's where we can look at. That's those are points we can raise to bring up policymakers to make them to comment. So we have strong dependence on rainfall. If we don't have enough rainfall this year, our crops will suffer. Like now, we are in a dry season. If for some of us that do go to the market, if you pay attention, you notice that vegetable like water leaf is very expensive now. I don't know how many people do go to the market. Water leaf is expensive now. Why? Because we don't have enough water. The rain, we are in a dry season where rain don't fall often like before. But when we get to that wet season, the price of water leaf and other vegetable will come down. So that's another characteristic of farmers in this region, in this country, dependence on rainfall. But in an improved society, this can be taken care of. A proper irrigation system. And don't forget, the idea behind GMO is to intervene in some of these issues. Then we move to cultural and traditional seed saving practices. Storing seeds from previous harvest. We mentioned that that's a traditional way of preserving seeds for the new planting season. When we harvest, we cut, we use, we sell, then preserve some parts for new planting season. But in the sector of, when GMO is involved, these practices will not be used. We have preserving locally adapted seed varieties. This seed is always good in this particular land, in this particular farm, in this particular environment. We preserve them. Community-based exchange and sharing. We do get seeds, stem from our neighbor, from our brothers. Oh, do you have stem? Can I pick some from your farmland? No problem. But when GMO is in order, I don't think those exchanges will work. And these are done without monetary exchange. You don't need to pay a neighbor, a community based, sister brothers can do exchange seed, they do exchange stem in terms of cassava. But can we exchange when money is involved? I think that will be something we have to look into again. So the use of traditional storage method for communities or states that has yams, cocoa, I think they have like a storage where they packed this yam for new season and passing seed knowledge across generations. So these are major the look the characteristics of smallholders. When you talk about smallholder farmers in Nigeria, these are this is their let me put it, this is their fate. This is how they do their things. In short, if you as a reporter, if you go to those communities to speak, you say you want to speak to a farmer, they will most of them will not even want to talk about because with this their small way of managing themselves, they are very comfortable. So you say government wants, they say, please keep your government, whatever, whatever. We are okay here. We do this, we go to the market, we sell our crops, we come back, we continue, we eat the one we can. So they are okay. But we come down to the challenges faced by these farmers. We mentioned that already, the climate change, the pests, and the low yields. So now our next slide talks about GMO versus local farming. The comparison comes back. And the first point I mentioned here is technology access and affordability. If you understand the agri sector very well, you know that uh, the pillars the pillars of food security. This the accessibility, affordability must be involved. So the first one we said refers to whether farmers, especially smallholders, can obtain and afford modern agricultural technologies such as improved seeds, machinery, or digital tools. Limited access or high cost can widen inequalities in farming productivity. Do farmers, will our farmers have the money? That's a major concern. If we go back to these slides, this is the point. The socio-economic concerns. Do farmers have the needed money to keep these practices going? That's a major concern. Then the second one, the seed ownership. Who owns the seed? That goes back to the second point of environmental impact, the diversity. Who owns Oluwakemi? Do you want to say something? Okay. So this goes back. Who owns this seed? It's the reality is that we don't have ownership of these seeds. That's once GMO is being accepted generally. So this seed, like I mentioned before, our traditional seeds might go into extinction, and the ones we will keep using, we will not have ownership of that seed. What we say here we relate to the legal rights over seeds, including patented or hybrid varieties. It affects farmers' ability to sell, reuse, or share seeds. This place goes back to the characteristics of farmers, which they do with share seeds, they reuse, and they sell. That's storage. And this has implications for control over agricultural resources. So peradventure, this any of these seeds company go on, maybe they say, because in everything you do, you must include risk management on, and you must include risk. So peradventure, something happened to any of these seed companies, how would we go? That's that's farming. We'll go into farming in our country. I remember in 2000, I think 2002 or so, when the Russia-Ukraine crisis uh, began, for some seed like wheat, Nigeria gets imports a lot of wheat from that region, from I think either Russia, I mean Ukraine, yeah. So you notice the price of bread immediately started going up. The price of other uh, wheat and product food started going up. Why? When you ask, they say, the problem, this crisis in Russia, this Russia Ukraine crisis has affected our food importation. We cannot import seed again. We cannot import wheat again. So that brings problem back to the country. And if you mention to someone, someone will say, how can, if they like, let them fight their war. It will not concern us. But it boils down to our food system, to our food availability. So we consider this. What if these seed companies, there's a problem that comes off? What will happen to our food system? There will be a problem. There will be a problem. So the third one, the impact on biodiversity and indigenous crops. We say focuses on how introducing new crop varieties and genetically modified seeds can affect the variety of plants grown locally, potentially reducing the cultivation of traditional crops and threatening ecological balance. That's the same point. What will be our fate? What will be those traditional ways of planting? So those are the points and those are the major concerns that we still argue. But would you say the GMO has advantage or it has benefits to food? Definitely it will, because we still go back to that to apple or broilers, the chicken we eat every day. I believe if we were to depend on our locally chicken or apple, we won't be seeing apples again or that. But the support of this uh, engineered apple, artificially altered apple, makes it available and it aligns with the pillars of food security, which is availability. But for affordability, we have to look at it. I don't know how much is how much they are selling one apple now. So that's boiled down to affordability. Would you be able to afford it? Next slide. So these points, I pick a quote from the article, which I will still share a link with you later to read and have more understanding around GMO food in the country. I said, rising food prices driven by inflation and supply chain disruptions have further limited household purchasing power. Don't forget that we started experiencing a sharp increase in the food prices since 2023 as a result of um, fuel subsidies removal, floating of naira, and what again? I mean, I think those are two major points that put up the prices of many things that we consume. So we say rising food prices is driven by inflation, supply chain disruption. These are middlemen, the work of middlemen have further limited household purchasing power, making it difficult for millions of families to afford nutritious meal. If you come to this point of nutritious, it falls below the pillars of food security in the nation. When we say the nation is food secure, it has to be okay, we'll get to that. Okay, look at in the lower part, the utilization of food speaks about the nutritious part of that meal. So if the food you are eating just for eating sake, just to quench the hunger, are they nutritious? Do they add much nutrient to you? If they are not nutritious, that means you are not food secure. It falls below this utilization. So coming again to that quote, however, against this backdrop, GMOs appear seductive. With these issues of food security we are facing currently, the introduction of GMO will be so good because it will solve some of these problems. It will attend to some of these issues. But advocates argue that Pest-resistant and drought-tolerant maize could turn the tide, boosting yields, cutting pesticide costs, and stabilizing food prices. For example, this organization, the African Agricultural Technology Foundation, projects that the teller maize, don't forget that Nigeria approved this teller maize last year. Once you read that article, you understand more. Nigeria approved this teller maize is a GMO crop last year. So, sorry, that this teller maize, eh, this teller maize could deliver up to 10 tons per hectare under good conditions, a quantum leap from Nigeria's average yield of 2.2 tons. If true, such gains could be a lifeline. But the debate is not simply about yields, it is about trust, ownership, and the future of African farming. So, when in as much now that we are still complaining of food security, and from statistics, it is understood that the yield we use currently per hectare is about 2.2 in terms of maize. So these people are projecting that if GMO, with what they are seeing, don't forget that in Africa, Nigeria is not the only country that accepts this GMO. South Africa has done first, and there's a good testimony from what they are getting now. So they say if this is accepted, this 2.2 tons per hectare could double or more than double to about 10,000, 10 tons per hectare. And that's massive. That's massive. If in terms of maize, that can spike off our food production. What about if we go to other crops like tomato, cassava, this staple food, rice, beans? This could bring a lasting solution to food insecurity in the country. But the problem still goes back to what they mentioned, the ownership and the future of African farming and the health implication, which is still controversial. So we mentioned, I put out there now, what are the challenges of food production? I've already mentioned the climate change, the pests and diseases, the post-harvest loss. I think we haven't spoke much about this post-harvest loss. Post-harvest loss around the GMO foods. Let's stick with tomato. I was in Port Harcourt last year for a post-harvest loss story. The major problem with my Dex research, one of the key things I had in mind when we talk about post-harvest loss was we don't have enough storage facility in the country. Government has to Government must build storage facilities and so that farmers can store food and on all those stuff. That was my desk research. But when I got to the field, I spoke directly with the farmers, not only the farmers, with the traders, dealers of this. The major problem they had was in post-harvest loss was bad road infrastructures. I think I will share that picture before, once I can find it. Food spoils on the road. We don't have good roads in the country. Hold ups, broken leasing. So a journey of maybe if a bus moves from Kano this morning and normally they expect is expected to be in River State maybe by 7 in the evening, and with their projection, they know that the crops in that motor will take them that number of hours. But getting to the road, you know that the roads are not good. A day journey movement can last for like 3 days, 4 days. And what will happen to those crops like tomato? What will happen to those crops like to those fruits like oranges? What will happen to those I also get to the coastal communities, fish, seafood that are being moved from Akwa Ibom to Lagos, from Akwa Ibom to Abuja, from Akwa Ibom to the northern part of the country. So what will happen if a journey that was expecting to last for like a day, for like 12 hours or 14 hours, at the end of the day, it lasted for more than 48 hours. So what will happen to those stuff? Those things will die off. Those things will spoil. And that's where post-harvest losses occurs. But the idea around GMO is that these crops, these livestock can last based on the gene introduced into those species of crops. So we talk about food security. I think can we connect GMO to food security? Definitely, to insecurity. Can we? Definitely can. But it's not much like what we are looking at now, because this has to do with what we are facing now, the farmer header clashes, and where people don't have access to their farmlands, where farmers cannot go to their farmlands to cultivate as much as, and where they from the news reports we read daily, they have to pay these bandits guys or the guys in control, they have to pay them some money before they access farmlands. So that still goes down to access to credits and access to loan. Do they have the money to keep this particular practice going? So what are the pillars of food security? I have been mentioning this in our previous slides. So the four pillars, we have to pay attention. If you are reporting on agri, you have to understand the difference between the pillars of food security and the challenges of food production. There was one training I attended, and after the training, like few days after, I saw on the social media of one of the participants of that training, he screenshots and showed this is a training I attended in food security, the challenges of food security. He now mentioned food availability. So the there was the error was that he mentioned the challenges in place of the pillar. So we have to pay attention to those differences. So the four pillars of food security, we have food availability, accessibility. The food has to be available anytime you want. You can get the food. Accessibility, is it accessible? Or do we need to go to a particular location, a particular state before we have food to buy? No, that means it's not. We are not food secure. It has to be utilization. I mentioned this when we are talking about nutritious meal, and it has to be stable. Talk about stability. So a consistency in the food production, not just like it's this year we have it, next year we don't have it again. But in all this, if we bring in GMO, if we bring GMO to this, don't forget that we are still talking about the GMO versus the local farming. If we bring in GMO to this, I know very well GMO can take care of this utilization. They are nutritious because it's one of the major traits they introduced to those particular crops. So the GMO food are nutritious. I know GMO will take care of this one, stability. I know GMO will take care of stability, and I know GMO will take care of availability. But will it be affordable? Accessibility, can it be? That goes back to seed ownership. If the if the seed companies are not able to produce enough seed in that particular season, what will happen to accessibility? So these are the major indicators we have to look at. If you are reporting around this particular topic, GMO is a bit scientific, so you have to pay attention to these pillars: availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability. And you have to pay attention to to the major challenges in food production. So now the next slide talks about the opportunities for balanced reporting. It's this is the reason why I asked when we want to start this discussion. Are we all journalists in the house? Because because I understand that if we are all journalists, we'll know how a good report will look like. It has to be balanced. It has to be balanced. We have to speak to so many people. We have to speak to so many experts. We have to speak to so many policy makers, and we have to speak to farmers to understand, because you need to understand the real problems. You need to understand the real problem because before you have a good reporting. So the first thing we said, investigating facts beyond advocacy narrative. Journalists should look past pro-GMO or anti-GMO advocacy messages. Like I mentioned, GMO foods are much controversial. They are much controversial. A lot of controversy around GMO. Some people say no to GMO. Some people say yes, let's bring in GMO. So as a journalist, a researcher that wants to have a good report, you have to do your own research too. You have to put out time and do your own findings. Abdullahi, are you hearing us? Abdullahi Jimo. Okay, so you have to do your own research and verify most of these claims using independent evidence rather than relying on these statements, corporate claims, or activist rhetoric. Last few months, we know this online influencer, Coco Doctor, when he was speaking about GMO, he accepted and showed his own consent that GMO is good. GMO foods are good. We should approve it. We should give room access to GMO, and that it will solve our food problem in the country. So, as a journalist, should we rely on that statement? No, I don't think we can. But that statement, that post can help us in doing our research. As a journalist that wants to have a balanced reporting, you have to do more and do your own research. I know a good report, a good story that will make impact and that will bring research is key, is number one. You have to make research, then add up your reporting views and comments from other actors and stakeholders in the sector. So we also say engaging scientists, farmers, and policy actors. Journalists should interview a wide range of experts and stakeholders to ensure coverage that captures scientific, economic, social, and cultural dimensions. So that's what we mentioned. What are these concerns? We have to speak with economic experts. We have to speak with social and cultural social and cultural experts to have their own dimension, to have their own comment. This will make that report to be rich and much research based and balanced. And the third part, which I love so well, is the use of data. You know, data don't lie, except your data are not correct. I love reporting with data because it gives you a straight and a transparent approach to what you are doing. As a reporter that wants to look at what's around food system, I think the first thing is I think the first point is what's the yield base. Last year, how many tons of maize were you able to harvest in your land? How many have you done so? Have you done this year? That data, that data will give clear, clear description about that report. If you look at in terms of trend, last month, for instance, now, for the past few months or years, I've been doing a kind of a market checks on food prices. I have data on food price changes monthly. So you look at the trend. For instance, a bag of rice, especially when the price of rice goes up. In the month of January, 50 kg of bag of rice was 50,000. In the month of February, 60,000. In the month of March, it comes back to 55,000. Like that, like that. So when you look at those data, you look at the trend. The trend on its own will give a proper story on that. And what what do you do? You have to you what you, the major thing is, what are the causes of these changes? The data are not consistent. The yield we had last year are not the same with the yield we have this year. What makes those inconsistency? We harvested 4 bags of rice this year. We harvested 3 bags of rice this year. What makes those this year we had two, or this year we have seven. So what happened last year? That is where you have comments to back up your data. But in terms of data, data explicitly will give you a proper direction to your report. So, like I mentioned here, I said journalists should use yield statistics, that's production, pesticide use records, adoption rates to show evidence-based benefits. Data-driven reporting helps counter misinformation and improves public understanding. We know there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation now in the social media space. A lot of stories. In short, as one of the innovative strategies to engage our audience next year, I've made plans to introduce fact checking in my project, in the agric project. So I want to do a lot of fact checking regarding the information that they shared around the agric sector, so that we will know when we need to react and when these things are not right. So when you have data on its own, a correct data from a good data sources, data alone will counter this misinformation. Data will work and improve the understandings of the public on this particular issue. So for balanced reporting, investigation is important. Engaging scientists, that you speak to many people in the many actors in the sector, and the use of data will help in balancing your reporting. So the next slide is, I'm mentioning here the key regulators in this sector, the GMO food. So if you are doing your reporting, these are the major agencies that you can get your information from. The National Biosafety Management Agency, NBMA, they are responsible for regulating these genetically modified organisms, the GMO. I think their duty is to review applications. Like, if you read the article that I will share a link with you, from what I have there, Nigeria approved at like 4 telomeres last year. But in addition to that, there's another application for up to like 20 or 30 other crops still under review. So that's the duty of this NBMA. They have to review this application, conduct risk assessment, issue permits for research, import, field trials, and commercial release, and ensures biosafety compliances. So that's their duty. So when doing your reporting and when you are trying to understand what is really happening in this GMO sector, you get information from them. You get information from them. Right? Send them an FYI, send them, speak with them, go in there. Uh, oh, God, this is what we assess. From my research, I've seen that you guys are still conducting a trial for other 20 to 30 crops. What's the state of those trials? Where are we? What are the findings? Where are we expecting the release or confirmation of those stuff? You have to get information from them. We also have the NAFDA, the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Food Control. They oversee food safety also and ensure that these GMO food products entering the market meet national standard. So we have to get information from them as well in case of any issues that might come up later, especially with the concern of in terms of health issues. So we have to get information from NAFDAC as well. And I also mentioned the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. These ones are the major, they works in the policy direction. You have to speak with them, send message or send mail to them. Let them speak on the policies, the policy direction of on this GMO food. Let them tell us where are we and what are the requirements of on approval to this. Then I also mentioned the National Seed Council. This talks about, remember, we talked about the seed ownership. They regulate seed quality, certification, and distribution, including seeds of GM crops approved for commercialization. I know the first question any person or that does not understand GMO will ask after listening to this our conversation is, where will we get these seeds? This is where to get those information from. This National Agricultural Seed Council can get those information from them. There's there's a there's a it's thought that GMO is coming to the country, that the country has approved. Okay, for instance, let's go to the ones that has been approved, although it's still controversy around the continuation of those stellar messes. I mean, mess in case you are not sure of any from this national agri that will help with this information. And they will also help in balancing your reports, in balancing your research. Hello, are we there? Are we
Yes, I can hear you.
okay? Okay. I wanted to be sure that I've not been talking to myself all this while. So the next slide talks about the ethical consideration of for journalists. Like I said, I believe everybody understands this, avoiding misinformation and sensationalism in your reporting. Don't bring in emotions. Don't bring in your own views. Don't bring in your, like, as a journalist, some people are advocating for GMO to come in. Some people are saying no, no GMO. So as a journalist, you don't bring in any of your own views. The only thing you bring in is views from the stakeholders, views from the players in the sector, views from the farmers, views from the experts, and views from the agencies and government policies. So your own is to report. You avoid misinformation where you need data to back up your research and your information. Bring in data. Look at the data around food and hunger situation in the country. Look at the data around prices of foodstuff. Back it up with what you are trying to tell. It will strengthen your report. Number two, we say ensuring diverse representation of voices. Like we all know, you have to speak as many with as many voices as possible, because if you speak to two people, definitely the information, there might be some differences in the information. While this one say, I'm okay with what I'm doing currently, this other one will say, no, I'm not okay. So those information will enrich your report and makes it very okay. Then the third point, the fact-checking scientific claims.
Looks like we've lost our facilitator. I'm guessing his network has gone off. Hello, good morning, everyone. First time you're hearing my voice, so it's only right I say hi. I don't know if Oge is still on the call.
Yes,
Oh,
I'm here. I'm trying
oh,
to
okay.
reach out to him so you can get him back on the call.
Okay. We'll just wait for him to join again. Thank you.
I believe what I see. Why does everyone in the mirror? If I told you different, would it sound the same? Would it make a difference in any way? Oh, no. I know I've done wrong. I'll pay for it. It's your turn to talk for once I'm listening. Say that you don't want me. Say that you don't need me. Tell me how. Tell me you've been tortured. Tell me you've been betrayed. I don't to you. If doesn't matter what's true. Say that you don't. Say that you don't. Tell me now. All right. Sorry about that. I think we are in Nigeria and we know the situation of things. I don't need to mention, but sorry about that. The network was a bit funny.
Okay, you're welcome
Mm,
back.
thank you so much. So please, can you see my screen back?
Yes, we can.
Okay, okay. So I think I was speaking about the last points here, fact checking scientific claims. So as I mentioned, like I said, the GMO food and GMO issues mostly has to do with scientific terms and scientific. issues. So we have to, because it's bringing, altering the gene of a particular crops to something more advanced trait. So we have to pay attention to some of the facts or some of the points that are being raised, and we have to fact check them to be sure of what we are doing, to be sure that we are not bringing reporting wrong or give. So that's where I said the fact checking claims are much and very, very important. The next slide talks about finding story ideas in GMO reporting. Like I mentioned earlier. So I in getting stories idea, definitely you have to speak. The simplest way of getting story ideas, apart from reporting, is direct conversation. Direct conversation, either with a friend, either with but in this one that has to do with the farming or agriculture, direct with farmer, direct with a friend or a neighbor, anybody. Speaking, definitely you see an
Apologies once again. Our facilitator seems to be struggling with his network. We'll give him a few more minutes. In the meantime, enjoy the musical interlude.
something hard. It's hard to get to anywhere I follow. So say something.
Welcome back. You have the floor if you can hear us.
Can you hear me as well?
Yes, I can hear
Hello?
you. I
Okay,
can
okay,
hear you.
sorry. Yeah, I don't know why the network is trying to move me here. So the second one I talked about is the to investigate seed pricing, access, and distribution. So look out for any of these seed companies, speak with them. If we move fully into GMO food system in our country, what will be our fate? What will be the distribution strategy or method of making sure that this seed is evenly distributed in the country and is accessible? That will give you a story angle. That will give you a story idea. That will give you proper understanding around the sector, around what is happening. So another one is explore GMO's role in climate resilience. Definitely, we know one of the major points of the major idea of bringing this GMO is to be climate resilient, to 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 stand the impact of climate change, the droughts. So explore this role. Are they still okay? Are they functioning? Speak with climate experts. Let them share their thoughts. Let them share their comments around the GMO and what they have in mind from on this issue. And also say track regulatory decisions and approvals. Currently, Nigeria approved 4 teller maize last year, so we have to track them. Not only Nigeria, what about other African countries? Let's stay around Africa first. Then we move to the global space. What is happening with the GMO products in other countries that have accepted? Is it working well? So you speak to them. Impact on local seed powder services. You can do that. Using field visits for first-hand information, you have to go to the site, to the field, interviewing scientists and agricultural experts, definitely collecting government data and open source science in scientific studies. Data will also help in giving you an idea and creating a story idea around this GMO and local farming system. So our next slide, I put out some few story ideas, example, which you can use and still look out to develop. I mentioned like if how GMO food adoption is affecting smallholder farmers' income. How is it affecting smallholder farmers? That's a story angle to write. And seed companies and the politics of seed ownership. That is another angle. Comparing GMO yields versus traditional varieties. That's another angle to look at. But for me, GMO yields is going to be much massively. I can bet you that. The only concern is around those three major concerns that we have. So can we compare them? Voices of indigenous farmers on seed sovereignty. This is very important. This first and this last story ideas. I will really like someone to develop these stories and share a copy with us, and definitely we'll publish it. I really want someone to work on this story. Voices of let's people, and we are rounding up now. One of the major problems of this GMO is lack of education, literacy. People don't understand what it's really about. So if you share few knowledge with these farmers and then let them speak about the seed sovereignty. Let them share their points. It's a story that will look good, and if you package it well with the controversy around GMO, I believe that this story can make an impact. So this is my own recommendation on issues around GMO, whether we should accept or not. The first thing I said, it should make GMO a tool of progress rather than exploitation. A set of non-negotiable conditions must be pursued. Laws must ensure farmers' ability to save, share, and replan. Remember, these are the problems. Without fear of criminality or corporate monopoly. So our laws must enable farmers to do this. Nigerian institutions should establish a robust system for assessing environmental and health effects, research, and tests, accompanied by strong oversight mechanism. So this goes back to those concerns. We must be able to test and have a strong research on this GMO food. Will it work well in our body, or will it cause problems later on? So Nigerians deserve the right to know what they are eating, not just for you to come and give me and you don't tell me that this is GMO, whether my principle is that I don't eat GMO food, I eat only natural food. So we deserve the right to know that so that you will not force it on people. The clear labeling of GMO products is not only ethical, but also a democratic obligation. So instead of relying on foreign developed technology, Nigeria should channel resources into at university for research development. Remember, one of the problems we have in agri sector is research and development in all these institutes. So if you are looking for story idea, you can look into our budgets. How much have been allocated to this research institute in Nigeria? And what are the testimonies at the end of the day? How many new seedlings have they come up with? How many research have they done so far? So those are angles to pick up your stories as well. We may not have time, but definitely you can do this and share with us. Share with me. I'll be happy to look at them. Pick one GMO topic, draft story, angle, and target audience. Identify key stakeholders to interview. Straight to the point. Pick one GMO topic. You can pick from what I mentioned here. Pick one topic, draft a story angle. I think that's not difficult. Someone who can just pick one and speak out and let everybody hear. And the last one we've mentioned balance reporting, improve public understanding. GMO stories are rich with policy, science, and human interest angles. Journalists play a major role in doing this. We are the ones, the journalists, we are the ones to spread this message. We are the one to enlighten the public on what GMO is all about. So we go to the last slide. And thank you so much for this. But I would like if there's at least one person can do something around here, just pick one angle, bring a story angle, then identify key stakeholders. Thank you, and thank you very much. So I'm open for question now.
Okay, thank you, Ukejo, for that session. It's a very brilliant session. I think we have learned, unlearned, relearned lots of things. So we'll just go straight to the questions and answers. Question session. We have Salim, whose hands is up. Please, Salim, go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Ma. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon. I am very glad to be part of this month session. I really enjoy it, and I learn more about this issue because there is some kind of conspiracy theory, religious perspective, cultural issue regarding to this GMO, more especially I can say in northern Nigeria, because majority living here are farmers. And from what the facilitator has said, I think my own perception and mine has shifted to how this misinformation regarding to this GMO shapes community views like food security issue, hunger, and biotechnology. I am trying to figure out how can I do a report so that can help our community, more especially those who can be able to be targeted about this issue of GMO. Because even nowadays, locally residents are separating or circulating the news that this GMO has a high risk of cancer. For example, large consumption of GMO seeds lead to of gathering, and I look forward to create something that makes some kind of awareness, more especially regarding to the misinformation and the issue related to this. Thank you.
thank you, Salim. Thank you. And I think this feedback is very important, and I must appreciate this because just like we mentioned in our last slide, we are the ones to shape these narratives. We are the ones to put it straight to our audience and our farmers. So it will be very nice for you to look into the what we've discussed so far and create something and a story angle and that will help to educate your people. If even you are working in a radio station, you can as well put it out as a radio program just to help to educate these farmers. Like I mentioned, information is a major problem in this GMO issue. If we can do that, it will help to correct the narratives around the sector. So thank you very much for the feedback, and I'm happy to work with you in raising this story if you wish me to be a support.
Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to work with you. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Grateful.
Do we have any other question so we can have other comments and wrap up for today? So while we wait for more questions, I want to thank our facilitator once again for bringing this perspective on food security and broadening our knowledge and enlightening us on what we are going to write as journalists. So he took it from different perspectives, journalists, farmers, the government, also brought in the idea of fact checking and data, which are very key components of storytelling. And it would be good to have some of us, work on very incredible stories around this subject. And like he has promised, and we're really grateful for that, the stories can be co-published on Premium Times. So if you have any pitch, please kindly send it to editor@socialvoices.org. I'm going to state that again. If you have any story idea, you can send the pitch to editor@socialvoices.org. I'm going to share it on the platform as well. So if you have story ideas, you can forward to that to the email to be reviewed and hopefully co-published on Premium Times. So thank you, Ntiedo, for taking your time to teach us, and then we're going to also share the slides on the platform. And okay, Sakina is asking to go back to the slide before the last one. Would share we'll share the slides on the platform so we can all have access to the slides. So thank you very much, Ntiedo. I think from my end, I also thank the participants, my colleagues who are here presently on this call who have stayed from the beginning to this point. It's really good to have you all, stay on a Monday morning into the afternoon, taking lectures and lessons on food security. We honestly appreciate that we are willing and we're all eager to learn new things. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for standing. Thank you for staying through to this point. Thank you to Sheung, who works extremely hard from the back end. Thank you to every other person who is on this call. And I think I am going to call it a day. So thank you all for participating. We do hope to see you next month in our next session. Do have a great week. Goodbye all.